All right, welcome. We just started our day the Brain Smart way with the Unite, the Disengage Distress, the Commitment, and the Connection. And we're going to start by defining what discipline means to you. No one wants to take a crack at it? What does it mean to you?
To teach.
To teach. I've never heard that one before. That's a good one. What does discipline mean to you?
To listen.
To listen, to teach,
To structure.
to structure, yeah. For me, it's to hold myself accountable because it's like there are rules and everything. And while you're watching me, I'm going to follow them. But like when no one's watching, am I still following to these principles that I've laid for myself? So for me, it's like being accountable regardless of who's present or who's not present. Because I'm always present, so I can hold myself accountable. Great. So I like to define things because sometimes when you see the definition in person, it sort of puts things in perspective for you. So some of the definitions they have for discipline, for the Free Dictionary says that it's training expected to produce a specific character or patterns of behavior, especially training that produces moral and mental improvement. So that would be sort of like being accountable, like I said, for myself. Discipline can also be the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. Somebody said something along those lines, to listen.
Listen, yeah.
Yes.
I'll take that one.
Yeah. Discipline can also be the training to act in accordance with rules. So I'm disciplined if the rules are listed and I follow the rules. And discipline is also the control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders be obeyed. And then the conscious discipline definition per se is discipline isn't something that you do, it's something that you develop. So conscious discipline follows the brain state model. So in the brain state, there are 3 states: the survival state, the emotional state, and the executive state. For each state, there are associated behaviors. So I can say the more you practice, the more you can say, she's in her emotional state, or he's in her emotional state, because you start to see the behaviors. When you become an adult, they tend to get a little more complex, so you kind of have to really pay attention to start to discern the behaviors in adults. They're easier to discern in children. But there are a certain set of behaviors that go along with the survival, emotional, and executive state that can allow you to discern what state somebody is in. Once you figure out what state they're in, there's certain powers and skills that are at your disposal to help move the children up to the higher centers of their brain. And then we'll play around with some definitions and conscious discipline concepts. If we have time, we'll add some role playing. Role playing in real life situation always helps to connect the content to what's expected, or what the behaviors look like in your classroom. We'll start, of course, with the survival state. In the survival state, the survival state comes on when you're born. It's the most mature state, which is why your natural reaction is to get angry and want to fight or surrender. So it's the most mature state because as soon as you're born, the survival state comes on. The powers that go along with the survival state are your powers of perception and attention. With the powers of perception and attention, you learn the skills of composure and assertiveness. And it's listed on your PowerPoint too, but wanted to go through this. And the behaviors that you'll see are fight, flight, and surrender. An example of fight in the classroom would be me pushing you down because you took my toy. Or me running away from you because you're trying to bite me. And surrender are some of your kids who tend to be the kids that we tend to not notice sometimes, because it's like they don't get into behaviors, but they're not your kids who participate in everything. They're sort of in the middle, and sometimes we tend to forget about those little ones because, well, they don't require much attention. But we also want to pay attention to them, because if you're in a constant, we'll talk about being in a constant state of survival, what that does to the brain. Like when you're in survival, your stress response is activated. And when stress response is activated, it secretes hormones that can cause, if like the stress response isn't, if you don't deactivate it, the continual hormone in your body will cause lifelong effect to their brain and health issues, because it causes inflammation. Like when your body is swollen, it tends to cause a series of health issues. So we want to deactivate that stress response. So we don't want our little ones in their survival states at all times. So the behaviors that are associated with the survival state include silent treatment, biting, hitting, door slamming, grunting, groaning, pushing, eye rolling, fighting, and I didn't add the blank stare. Like, you know, you talk to them and you like, are you here? Hello? So that's a form of survival state as well. In the survival state, you have the powers of perception, which is the skill of composure. And your power of perception reinforces your control over your upset. A lot of times we'll say, you made me mad. No one can make you mad without your permission. So you can't make me mad. And the example I use for that is there's an anger button that somebody comes over and then they hit to make you angry. So being really intentional about the words that you use. You didn't really make me mad. What you did triggered me. And it's a trigger because you have that's why composure is connected to perception. You have a perception of how this situation should have happened. And because of your perception of how it should have happened, it didn't happen that way, so now you're upset. And when you're upset, you automatically sit in your emotional state. And in your emotional state, we'll talk about, you only have 2 skills, and you tend to access those skills. So your power of perception is always being in control of your upset. And it helps to build healthy, secure relationship, because then I'm not taking my feelings and dumping them onto you and making them your problem. For your power of attention, it's the skill of assertiveness. It helps teach others how we wish to be treated. So there's the golden rule that said, treat people the way you want to be treated, but it's really about treating people the way they want to be treated. But you still have to teach other people how you want to be treated, because they're not automatically going to know how you want to be treated. And the skill that you use to do that is assertiveness, being assertive with your needs. So composure and assertiveness, just throwing out random, not random, but definitions. Composure is described as self-control in action. That's the conscious, disciplined description. The state of feeling and being calm and in control of oneself. Can you be angry and calm at the same time?
Yes.
Why?
What do you mean why? Because you don't have to know, right? So it looks calm. You don't have to know that I'm angry, but you could have done something where I'm firing.
Yes. And that's why it says in control of oneself. So yes, she is right. I can be angry and you still not know it, because I'm in control of me. And I understand that what happened is a trigger. It's not, you're not intentionally trying to get at me. I'm triggered, so I'm going to control this upset and I'll deal with it in the best possible way so I can still be calm and be really angry. And composure is the serene, self-control state of mind. Again, all of this happens in your mind. And then assertiveness is the having or showing a confident and forceful personality. We'll talk about forceful in a second. And conscious discipline said assertiveness is setting limits respectfully. I've started to tell the people that I love when I talk about assertiveness, because assertiveness is my skill this year that I'm working on. And I was like, this is my line. This is me. This is you. This is the line. And you're crossing my line. So that's like a visual to get people to know, okay, then it's time to back off now. So that's one of the, so setting boundaries respectfully is having those lines, but if you don't set these boundaries, you're not really helping people know how to treat you. And then behaving confidently and is unafraid to say what they want. that goes back to being forceful. So last weekend, I was at my friend's house. She has an 8-year-old. Yeah, she's gonna be 9 next month, but she has an 8-year-old, and her name is Hailey. And Hailey was like, Miss Annie, I want you to color with me. And I looked at her and I said, I don't really want to color right now, but I can help you. She was making one of those, I forget what these things are called. You know,
Oh yeah, those are so cool, the little ones.
yeah, the little 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, she was making one of those. And I had given her directions, but she wanted me to color the whole thing for her. And I was like, I don't feel like coloring. So she like jumped on my back and gave me a hug. She's like, but Miss Annie, do it. I said, oh, Hailey, this is my line. You're over here and I'm over here. I said no, so my no is over here. And you're over here. And when you do that, you're crossing my line. And then she was like, okay, can you at least help me figure out how, like what to put on it? And I said, yeah, I can definitely help you do that, but I don't want to color. So that was me being forceful in what I wanted. Not forceful, I'm forcing her to do something, but I'm forceful in what my need at that point. That's assertiveness. Because if I had said, oh, okay, let's color. I still don't want to color, but I'm saying, oh, let's color. That's passive. Because like then you're going to do it and you're going to be upset. I don't even want to color. So that's your passive. But being assertive is saying no and being heard. But you're not going to be heard if you give in when you say no at first and then you give in when it's time to like, when you get pressured. So the forceful, that's what that means, is being forceful in your no. Okay. So composure and assertiveness. Being the person you want to become. And the reason why that goes with composure is your composure is entirely within your control. Like entirely. I can't make you throw this chair or the table or yell at me or not want to listen to me. No one can make you do any of that stuff. That's an internal decision that you make to extend those gifts to others. So I'm going to listen to you because I know in listening to you, there was a quote that said, I know there's comfort in the places where we overlap. And we won't find the places where we overlap until we start talking to each other. So becoming the person you want to become. So because I can't make Natalie do anything, what I can do is be the example. Every time I will show her the behavior that I want to see from her, and then eventually you'll start to see it. Same thing with your little ones. One example that I use all the time is I used to tell them not to sit on a table. But because the tables are short, when I was in the classroom, my go-to chair was the table. It was easy for me to get on a table. And lo and behold, they always just say, Miss Annie, it's not safe to sit on a table. So at that point, I need to listen because I tell them all the time it's not safe to sit on a table. So because I want them to listen to what I have to tell them, I have to listen back, especially when it's my rule that it's not safe to sit on a table. And then no one can make you angry without your permission. And we've already talked about, because there aren't like emotional buttons that people can just come up and say, you know what, Michaela, I'm going to make you angry right now. Boop. Or, you know what, no, I'd rather you be happy. Boop. So if it worked, it would be great if it worked that way. But it doesn't work that way. So again, with composure being entirely in your control, the way you express your anger is entirely within your control as well. With the power of perception, you learn the skill of composure. So the way you decide to look at the situation will dictate how you react to it. So I always use this, if Elendra were to walk in and I say, good morning, and then she just kept walking, I could easily say, you know what, I don't think she heard me. And again, that's because of our history. The history of our relationship tells me like she doesn't just walk in and ignore me every morning. So because I know that, she probably didn't hear me. Or even if I see her, she looked at me and rolled her eyes, it's like, ooh, something must be wrong. But that is a choice that I make to interpret the situation that way, because it is within my power to think that way. I am controlling the way that my thoughts are going. Or I could easily have said, what's wrong with her today? Psh, last time I talked to her when she walks in here. And then again, if I feel that way, the results, I end up hurting our relationship, because then I'm like, when she comes in the morning, I'm not talking to her ever again. I'm gonna go in my office, and now our work is affected because of it. So your choice at all times. And then the essential life value is integrity. And when I looked up integrity, because I was like, there are some words you know what they mean, but you're like, let me pull up a dictionary to see if what I'm thinking is what it is. And it said it's the state of being whole. And whole and undivided. And the example I use with my friend, I was sitting in the car one time, and she was talking about a guy that she's dating, and the guy had done something. But in the behavior that she was talking about was a behavior that I'm 100% sure I had done, her friend who was sitting in the front seat had done, she had done, our friend who was sitting next to me had done. So all of a sudden I was like, okay. I mean, again, that's because you ask questions, you don't judge. Wait, hold on. Explain this to me for a second. When he does it, it's an issue, but about when we do it, she's like, well, that's different because I love you. And I use that example to show what I mean by the state of being whole and undivided. If you have a principle, it doesn't matter who is going against that principle, you cannot make excuses for the person. Because when you start to well, no, that's different. Well, no, that's different. Well, no, that's different. You end up having all these separate set of rules for different group, then you're divided. So it's like when I get angry at a stranger, I can act boo-boo the fool, but if I get angry at my friend, I'm just gonna like, you know what? I'm just not gonna say anything. So that when they say integrity, being able to stay composed and not giving your power away, that's the life essential value is integrity, because it's showing that when you have a set of morals and principles that are yours, regardless of what group of people are going, and again, it's not judgment, it's like, these are my rules. Again, remember those lines? These are my lines. You don't have to do it my way, but I also don't have to agree or participate in anything that's going on because it goes against what I believe. So when they say integrity, I use that example to show like what they mean by like a sense of being undivided and whole. And the skill, of course, is anger management. And anger management isn't not feeling anger or suppressing anger. It's feeling it and expressing it in a way that's beneficial for you and the people around you. Of course, classroom structure for that is safe place. And the safe place is a hard one because there's a safe place that's actual structure in your classroom, but there's also the language that goes along with the safe place. So, and that is the hardest. The language, switching from the language of fear or language of judgment to the language of love is one of the hardest shifts with conscious discipline, because it's so ingrained in you to say this behavior is disrespectful, as opposed to respecting. We'll talk about free will and like, you know what, how can I encourage you to do it differently? Because I can't force you to do it. Then we talk about assertiveness, saying no and being heard, setting limits respectfully, those lines that we talked about. And what you focus on, you get more of. I started driving a Honda CR-V. Now all of a sudden, I'm seeing all of these Honda CR-Vs on the street. Not because all of a sudden there's an influx of Honda CR-Vs, but because I'm paying attention to them. Same thing with the behaviors in your classroom. You focus on the negative behaviors, you're going to get more of the negative behaviors. Annie's that kid that she's just so aggressive. You're only going to notice the instances that Annie is aggressive, and you're going to forget to encourage Annie when Annie is being kind. And if you don't encourage the kindness, you're going to get more of the aggressiveness. With the power of self-control is attention, because it's like now I'm paying attention to CR-Vs because I drive one. I'm seeing them everywhere. And then, and it's not just with CR-Vs. Like my friend drives a Nissan Rogue, I see them too. So when you're paying attention, when you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And your essential life value is respect. Respect, because with Hailey and I not wanting to color, she respected that I said, I don't want to color it. After I was forceful enough and stood with it, and she's like, okay, let me do it by myself. You just talk me through it. And I'm teaching her to respect when somebody says something, they have to be heard. And then basic skill is helpfulness. Helpfulness in two ways. You're helping me when you teach me how to treat you, but you're also helping the relationship when you teach me how to treat you. Because when we're in a relationship and you say, oh, I don't like that, you're helping me not do it again. Because if I do it, you get mad, we get in conflict, and we have to repair the relationship all over again. So the helpfulness they're talking about is being able to stay in healthy, secure relationships. We require that but we're both assertive about our needs so that we can stay in a healthy relationship as much as possible. And the classroom structure is the time machine or instant replay. So the time machine really tells you, instant replays, they're both sort of the same thing. It's giving the kids the opportunity to do it over when you give them the words. So I went over and I hit you. And teacher comes over and is like, ooh, you were trying to get her attention. Next time you want her attention, say, remind me of your name?
Tina.
Tina. Say, Tina. And then you say, go ahead. You want her attention? Say Tina. And you give them an opportunity to replicate it. Or, I took your toy. You go over, like, did you like it? No, I didn't like it. Okay. Go tell Glenielle that you didn't like it when she took your toy and to give it back. Because sometimes kids don't have the words to solve their problems, and that's why they need us. So you go over there, it's like, okay, Glenielle, give me back my toy. I didn't like it when you took my toy. And that's how you're giving them the skill of assertiveness, because they're being assertive. Like, I'm saying that I don't like it when you do this to me. Give it back. I don't have to push you. I don't have to hit you. I just have to use my words. I only have to use my words to tell you to give it back. Now, sometimes Glenielle might not want to do it. As a teacher, it's very helpful when you listen to your friend's words. And it's helpful because when you listen to her, she gets her needs met, and you guys can stay in harmony and you can play without us having to be mad at each other all over again. We'll come back to that. So for the emotional, we go from, any questions on survival? And if you have any questions you don't want to ask, feel free to just write them down and share them with your coach. If she can't help you, she'll get in touch with me.
Okay, I want to ask a quick question.
Yes.
So say the last situation you just said. What if you said tell them to give it back and the child is like, no, they don't want to, and you've asked them twice and then they still refuse to give it back to the child? How would you handle it then?
There's not a time limit on how long you sit down and tell them to give it back. And I think for us as teachers, I only have this amount of time to get you to give it back. Yeah. I'm not going to force you to give it back, but I'm going to sit here until you return it. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes. Because it's not a choice. When you intrude on someone else, you have to make it right. So it's not a choice for them to give it back. They have to give it back. And then we can talk, we'll talk choices a little bit. It's like, it's not a choice. You've taken that toy from her, she was playing with it. You're going to give it back. It's a matter of when.
So if I, in that same example, if I, the teacher, am replaying both sides and that kid has to say what happened, right? Like in my head, I'm imagining what I do, and I feel like sometimes it's helpful when the kid has to say what they did, right? So I ask them, well, did you have the toy, or did you take the toy? And usually they're pretty honest, and they're like, I took it. It's like, well, that was hurtful. Do you want to be hurtful? And it tends to move it along in a different speed. I
would state it in a sentence, not a question. Oh. Not do you want to be hurtful. It's like when you want them to be helpful. So it's kind of like we all know about the walk and don't run. Mm-hmm. You don't want to say hurtful because what their brain hears is hurtful. You want them to be helpful. So you want to be as positive. You want what you want. You want to say what you want to happen, not what is happening. Does that make sense? So what you want to happen is, I want you to be helpful. Or it's really helpful. That's when you it's really helpful if you were to give her toy back because you took it without asking her. You could even say, you know what, if you want the toy, say, hey, Annie, may I play with the toy? And then Annie can make the choice to give it to you or not. And remember, those lines are happening with kids too. Because if I don't want to give it to you as a teacher, I'm not about to make you give her the toy if you're not done playing. But if you did take it, then yes, I'm going to stand there and continue to encourage you. You can't go anywhere until you've given her the toy back, because she was playing with it first. And then you can ask the other friend, would you like to play with your friend? But that's still their choice, because they had the toy first. Now, if they want to play together, that would be the best way to do it. Because once you encourage them to play with each other, they're more than likely going to start to play with each other. But at that point, you really have to make it known that you don't just snatch a toy away from somebody else. And that's the lesson. We don't snatch toys from our friends. We ask for them. That makes sense? Okay, cool. Yes, but we tend to want to ask kids questions. Sometimes they don't have the answers. And that's why you want to give them. That's why instead of saying, when you said, did you like it? They're going to tell you no, because that's why they're over here complaining to you. It's like, oh, if you didn't like it, I'm telling you, go over there and say, give it back. You give them the words so that they can be successful in that situation. Yeah. I mean, even with adults, it's like, oh, you hurt my feelings. Okay. But you're not telling me what to do next time, because more than likely this situation is going to happen again. And that's why conscious discipline, being solution focused, is saying focus on what to do next time to keep us from being in this space again. And it's going to continue. I mean, it's going to happen multiple times. And I'm going to keep reminding you, this is how I want you to do it. So with the emotional state, the skills you have access to, blaming and judging. Oh, you made me mad. Oh, I can't believe she did that. Did you see that she did that? She's mean. And we get into that space. But when you get in that space, it's really hard for us to find a solution to stay in relationship with each other. Because if you know what, all you want to do is cause me pain. What reason do I have to want to work on the relationship if that's what I'm thinking? Or that child, all she wants to do, I know she's picking on me. Like she's not listening to me on purpose. No child does not listen to you on purpose. Children want to be successful. It's our job to give them the tools to be successful. I mean, children don't wake up in the mornings like, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can today to not listen to Miss Cheryl. Can't wait to get to school. Like, kids don't get up in the morning and say things like that. But because of our programming, which is our emotional state, all of our experiences, she calls it the CD-ROM, that's the symbol for the emotional state. All your experiences are recording, and because it's recording, it's stored. Whether you're aware of it or not, all of it is stored up in there, and it's influencing your perception of what's happening. Because we know why people do the things that they do, but you don't. You're assuming, you're taking a best guess. Even with the people that you love, you're taking an educated guess because, you know what, I've known Annie for 10 years now. I feel like I know what she would do in this situation, but that's a guess. Sometimes we take those guesses and we're like, nope, I know. And that's where we start to get into trouble with people in general. So blaming and judging. And I like to point out that when you're in your emotional state, because you're blaming and judging, you have blinders on and headphones on. So it doesn't matter what you've told me. And the example that's really good for that is it's like we talked about this. Like we literally sat down and we talked about this. How do you not remember? And sometimes you think the person is lying about them not remembering. But this is why it's really important to sort of pay attention to people and see what state they're in, especially your kids. Because when your kids are in survival or emotional, their memory is non-existent. You want them in a state, you want them to feel safe. You want them to feel loved before they can start to retain the information that you're giving them. And that's why it's really important for that safety and love to be in your classroom, because that's when the learning happen. Optimal learning doesn't happen until I feel safe and I feel love. One of the very big visual I give is when a tiger is coming at you, you're not thinking, I wonder how tigers live. What part of the world do they live in? What do they eat? You. That's who. But when the tiger is coming after you, that's not what you're thinking about. And I mean, that's a really good visual to show like how important safety is in learning. Like I'm not thinking about the great things, about the great ways that tigers contribute to the ecosystem when you're coming after me. Yes, so for your toddlers, they don't have words, but language is definitely activated because they can communicate. You can say, oh, put it on a table, and they look at you and they walk over and they put it on a table. So their language is activated, and that's why we can say like the emotional state comes on, because you try to pick them up and they, no, or like their body tells you, like they start to talk. Language is more than words. It's like the way that we communicate in general. So for your behaviors, they can be complicated sometimes, but it's a matter of kind of recognizing when I say talk, there are different ways of like expressing what a toddler is doing. Infants, definitely all survival, which is why they cry for everything, but their cry is their way of communicating to you, like, hey, something's up. And for adults, it looks a little different. Not really, it's just more complex. We just have more tools in our bags. We have access to more tools in our bags. So like that verbal aggression can hurt a little more when you're an adult than it does when you're a kid. And retaliation can definitely hurt when you're at work. Social exclusion is one of the big ones when you start to get into high school and the middle school ages, because like the cool kids, the popular kids, and then the not so popular kids, and that's when you start to get these social exclusion circles. So with the emotional state, I definitely left one out. There it is. I was like, wait, where's the last one? The emotional state is associated with the power of unity, the power of free will, and the power of acceptance. Power of unity, you have to believe that we're all in this together, so I can listen to how you care about it. Because if we're in it together, I have to listen to you so we can work together and make and meet our objective. Another one example that I use that we just found out is my behavior is affected, like my immediate friends and family affect my behavior about 15% of the time. And then their friends and family affect my behavior 10%. So that's like 2 circles removed. And in 3 circles removed, they still affect my behavior 7% of the time. So that's a little tidbit. I like to put that with the power of unity, because if you think you're in this alone, you're wrong. I didn't want to use the word wrong, but it's really what it is. No matter how alone you feel in the world, it is an incorrect thought, because you are never alone. You can always find somebody else that's going through the same thing you're going through. I think what we've been conditioned to do is keep it to ourselves, so you can't find the people who are going through it to support you through it. But nobody is, can we say we're alone anywhere? I'm alone in my house. That's about it. But once you step out of your house, like, are you ever alone truly? So that's what the power of unity emphasizes, and it sustains a sense of belonging and connectedness. And the power of free will builds and sustains self-control, understanding that you have a choice. And when I think of free will, you have to think about it's respecting people's thoughts, opinions, their feelings. So one example that I use is like you come up and I'm like, man, today was a hard day. This happened. And I go, oh, please, that's nothing. This is what my day looked like today. So being able to respect that you have a feeling, and just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean that your feeling isn't valid, because it's your experience. And then the power of acceptance builds a positive mindset and empathy towards others. We can really have a whole training on empathy alone, because of the way that we express empathy. It tends to be, I'm going to take on your feelings, or I'm fixing it. Ooh, no, I don't want this. Especially with kids, adults tend to do this. Ooh, I don't want you to get hurt, so I'm going to do everything for you. And we end up crippling our little ones. And one example I use is I grew up in Haiti, and by the time I was 8, I was cooking in the kitchen. I was taking care of they would leave me in the house by myself with infant children. And I haven't killed anyone yet. Just wanted to throw that in there. So I was destined to be in the field with children because it started really early for me. But that's because the adults in my life knew that I could do it. They taught me the skill. And then they let me practice it. And then when I say I was cooking, I didn't get up one morning and started cooking, no. My aunt taught me how to cook. So in the beginning, it was the two of us in the kitchen all the time. And then it switched from me watching to me doing and her watching. And then to me doing and her occasionally coming in and checking. And then to me just doing. So there's a process to it, but if you have an expectation for a kid, you slowly work them into it. You're going to see it. And I can say, if I can cook a meal at 8, and it's, when I say a meal, guys, Haitian cooking, it's an all-day process, like an all-day process. You wake up at 9 o'clock and dinner is not ready. I mean, of course, you're making breakfast and lunch in the meantime that quick, but dinner isn't ready until like 4 p.m. That's like a Haitian dinner thing for you. It's like an all-day process. So if my 8-year-old self can do it, there are times that I feel like because we don't respect children's free will, we don't have a lot of expectation. Well, in your mind, you're like, well, no, she's just 5. She can't do this. Oh, no, she's just 6. She can't do this. As opposed to saying, oh, are you interested in learning how to cook? Okay, then you can do it with me, and then we'll work on that. So when we talk about free will, it's respecting that there may be little human beings, but they're little human beings who have their own wants and needs and opinions, and then it's our job to just sort of guide everything they're doing within the umbrella of safety. It's when you clicked, it took me away. You might have to escape and then bring it back up again. Thank you. Alrighty. So, encouragement. Definition is the act of giving someone support, confidence, or hope, or the act of trying to stimulate the development of an activity or state of belief. And conscious discipline describes it as a dose of hope. Encouragement. So it really is all three of these, because when you encourage a kid, you're giving them hope that, oh, you're right, I can do it. And if you take away that hope that I can do it, it's very difficult for you to believe that you can do something when you don't have people around you encouraging. So, you know what, you can do this. You don't have the urge to practice and want to keep at it. Because when you don't, one of the things that I say is like, I don't like to go skating because I don't do it well. But I don't do it well because I don't go. So it's one of those things that you want to do. You're more inclined to do things that you do well because it makes you feel good. But if I had friends, I didn't grow up in the United States, and I hear skating was a big thing. But if I had grown up in the United States, I probably would have went skating more often because my friends were going skating and they were encouraged, like, no, Andy, don't be scared. We've got you. Let me hold your hand. Let's do it. And I would be more inclined to want to try skating. But that wasn't a part of my environment. So now that I'm an adult, I don't want to pay for something that I'm not good at. So I don't do it. So encouragement is what makes a world of a difference when you're trying to teach your kids particular skills. So it's like, and then one of the things that I always end with after they do it is like, see, I knew you could do it. You put the block back on the shelf. And that's like, you want to keep encouraging them because you want to associate that good feeling they feel when you believe in them to the behavior. And then you start to get them to encourage them to practice that behavior even more. And then it's choices, which is the right or ability to make or possibility of making such a selection. That's the choice. An act of selecting or making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. And empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's also the psychological identification of experiencing of the feelings, thoughts, or attitudes of another. And conscious discipline says empathy is the heart of emotional intelligence. And empathy is like a really big one, because you have to empathize with your children to offer up the ability to teach them a new skill. So if I don't empathize that, it's really hard for you when we have to switch from the outside to go back inside, because you're having a good time. That's really hard for you. If I'm not doing that, then it's more the language that comes out is like, we do this every day. We go from outside to the class, and it's not mean, because it's true. We do it every day. And every day you're crying like, what's the deal? Again, going back to the reason why empathy goes directly with the power of acceptance is if I accepted that it was hard for you going from outside to inside, I wouldn't be saying, every day we do this. Why do you have to cry every day? Because I have not accepted the fact that that's just you. So if I accept that that's you, you're going to cry when we go from outside to inside. What it looks like is more of a it's about to be 5 minutes. We're about to go in. Where's Annie? Oh, Annie! It's about time for us to go in. You know what I want you to do? When it's time for us to go in, you can be the door holder, or you can be the caboose, so you can make sure everybody makes it in inside safe. Which one do you choose? Oh, you're gonna hold the door. Okay, great. That's gonna keep everybody safe too, because we don't want anybody to get hit with the door. That hurts. So you're gonna hold the door. All right, you can go play. When it's time for you to do your job, I will let you know. Oh, Annie, it's in like a little bit, you're gonna have to be the door holder. Remember, you said you wanted to be the door holder? It's that transition, because now I've given you a job, you're contributing to your environment, and it's not so hard for you to, like, right as you were playing, running around, having a good time, and now you're like, oh no, I gotta go do my job, let me go hold the door. Is it gonna work every day? Probably not. Some days I'm gonna cry anyway, but you can still empathize with me. It's like, it is hard when we have to go from outside to inside. When we're having so much fun outside and you gotta go back in the classroom, it is hard, I get it. Do you wanna hold my hand, or do you wanna walk in line by yourself? Because when you accept it, it's not about fixing or making it stop. It's about offering empathy and supporting them through it. And I think for us sometimes we want the crying to stop. We want the behavior to stop. But really when you empathize, it's about, let me give you another skill to help you be successful next time, or let me just support you through it. Because sometimes if it's an emotion, I can't do anything for you. Like we said, there's not a switch, there's not a button that I can make it stop, even for kids. So it's just supporting you through it. I know it's hard. Come here, come on. I'll give you a hug and I'll rub your back for as long as you need me to, because that's all I can offer to you right now. But I am supporting you through the emotion so that you know you're not alone. And then building the school family is encouragement, and because we're all in this together. It goes right in hand with interdependence. The example I use with that is, doesn't matter how successful you are in life, somebody help you get there. And that's why I said there's no way for you to be successful without somebody's help. You've had teachers at one point in your life. If nothing else, your teachers help you make it to where you are today. So interdependence is a really good one, because you can sort of see it everywhere. Helpfulness in this setting is about being of service to others. So it looks slightly different from the helpfulness of the power of attention. But helpfulness is me being of service to others in this one. And then your classroom structures that go along with this are your jobs. If I'm contributing to the classroom, then I can take ownership of the classroom. I'm more likely to want to clean it up because it's mine. And your friends and family board to make sure that everybody feels included, because we want to build a sense of belonging in the classroom. And your ways to be helpful. Ways to be helpful serves two purposes too. You want to have a ways to be helpful book, and you can take pictures of the kids being helpful in the classroom. But one suggestion that I have with the ways to be helpful book is putting things on there that are a routine in your classroom. So like, oh, it's very helpful when you clean the block center this way. So you put a picture of the clean block center up so that they can see, like, those are ways to be helpful in our classroom. The block center looks like this, so when you finish with that blue block, you see the blue block went over here, you put the blue block right over there. Those are ways to be helpful in the classroom. Ways to be helpful is, when it's time to line up, boom, this is the way that we line up in the classroom. You can have, having that in a book gives them an opportunity to see it even when it's not happening. Because the more you expose kids to some of the things in your classroom, the better it is for them. So if we're talking about it when I'm not expecting you to do it, or I'm talking about it all the time, are you seeing it around in the classroom all the time, you are more likely to be successful when it comes time for you to have to show these behaviors. Does that make sense?
So I got a question.
Yes.
Okay, so we started this new thing where we have these different color feet, and it has everyone's name on it to help them line up. Because when we get ready to go outside, they just bum rush the door. Okay, so we have this one kid who will absolutely not stand on his feet. But if he does, he'll do it for about 2 seconds, and then he'll go in the corner.
Yes.
And then, like, if we get him back on the feet, then he may say, I don't want it, and just fall down on the floor, and we're refused to get back up. So we try it again, and he'll just run out the line and go to the front and push everybody out the way. How would you respond to get him to stand on his feet?
So is the objective to get the kids not to bum rush the room, or to get him to stand on the, and I will also point out, it's not development appropriate for your little ones to line up. Like, that's asking a lot of them. Okay. That's where I should start. And the reason why he's having a hard time is it isn't development appropriate. And sometimes if you have 20 kids and 19 and a half of them are showing the behavior, you automatically think, oh, you can do it too. But standing in line is not developmentally appropriate for our all the way up to 4 or 5. And I know they transition to kindergarten, so we have to prep them to stand in line for kindergarten. But for your little kid, I would say, because it's not developmentally appropriate, he might be the last one to get in line. Because once he get in line, it's time to walk out. Because he's not going to give it to you for more than like 10 seconds. Or he could be your helper while everybody's getting, you making sure that the room is clean so that he doesn't have to get in line until it's time to walk out. And that's us knowing that they have the problem, finding solutions to help them be successful. Because the reason why he's falling out when we go back is like, yo, I just did this and I didn't like it. But now you put him in the same situation again. I still don't like it. So now I'm going to show you that I don't like it. And that's probably why the second time around, you're going to get the fallout. So it's more of a, okay, you know what, you might need a job when everybody's lining up. Again, your classroom, you kind of determine what that job looks like. Because there's always like somebody who grabs the bag. I don't know, maybe he's your emergency person. And he's going to keep everybody safe by going and get the bag and the roll, whatever the job looks like. But giving him a job so that he doesn't have to be in line until we're walking out the door. Yeah, and sometimes with these objectives, we have to be careful that, so for him to stand on the line, that's more of a teacher, I want you to stand on the line. But the objective is for you guys just not to hurt each other when you're walking out the door. But there's more than one way for us to do that without having to stand in a line. So when you when you think through some of these, you can find more than one solution. And if you can come up with more than one solution, see which one works best for all of your kids. It's like, you know what, yesterday we tried it and it didn't work. Let's try it this way today. So I'm going to call your name and you're going to go see Miss Annie at the door. It's like one of us is going to wait right here. So when I call your name, that's when you walk out. So because the objective is to keep them safe when they're walking out the door. I would say, think about it. It's not a safety issue. It's more of like, okay, I'm going to let it go. And it isn't unsafe for him to not stand on his 2 feet. It's a great literacy activity, though, especially since you put their name on it. But not necessarily development appropriate if he's showing you, like, I don't want to do this. Being able to read their behavior, too, will tell you, like, if it's something that they like or don't like. Did that help?
It did.
Yeah.
I just asked you what it is. So this particular child, he needs a lot. So it's nothing, not saying that he doesn't like anything, but he's one of those ones that there's something going on. So he needs an extra everything.
Love.
Yeah.
That's what I would call it. All he needs is love.
And honestly, I don't know, like it took a long time. So he's one of those ones too that I don't think he feels safe right now.
And I'm telling you, if you don't feel safe or loved, you're going to get a lot of all your kids who are showing you behaviors don't feel safe or loved. And sometimes we take it personal, but it has nothing to do with you. Because it takes time to develop trust. And it's with trust that you feel safe. And that takes time. And then it's your behavior that can dictate how they feel loved, from the way that you hug on them, you love on them, you empathize with them, you listen to them. Because sometimes like, oh, I don't want to write. I don't want to do this. It's like, you know what? All right, these are your choices. Would you like to A or B? But that's how you show kids that you listen to them, because adults tell them what to do all the time. And the way that they feel heard is by listening to them. Yes, in 5 minutes. I completely lost my train of thought, but when you thank you, Lanielle. That was very helpful, very helpful. So safety and feeling like you belong somewhere really matters, and that takes time. So continue to give, and that's why I said continue to give him love. Continue to give him love. And if it persists, I would just get him checked out. Because sometimes if it's a diagnosis, what we're talking about looks a little different when you have special needs. Yeah, when you have special needs, it's not that much different, but your strategies are different because you sort of have to meet the need. So if it's something that continues over a long period of time, getting them tested for diagnosis may help, because then you know what you're doing. Oh, no wonder it wasn't working. I was doing this the wrong way. And for kids who have trauma, it looks different too. So being mindful that we're aware that if it's not working, it's not because there's nothing wrong with your form of teaching, is that you don't have all the information. Because usually when it's not working, you get frustrated, right? And frustration says, get more information. Nope. And for choices, it builds self-esteem and willpower in children. So when I say, would you like to do A or B? I'm unconsciously saying, I trust you to know what's best for you, so you can choose between these two choices, as opposed to just do this. And then when you say just do this, I'm also teaching you follow authority. If an authority figure tells you to do something, do it. Whether or not this authority figure has your best interest at heart when they're telling you to do it, when I tell you to do something, do it. And we, especially in today's world, we definitely want kids to respectfully ask questions. Because you want to know, well, is that safe? And I have had 4-year-olds ask me, is that safe? And it shows that when you're using that language with them, they definitely start to pay attention to some of those things. And then the only person you can make change is yourself. And that's why I say listen to your kids when they talk to you. Because you can't force them to do it. Like I can't force you to stand on the 2. That's why he falls out. He's like, nope, I don't want to do it, and you're not going to make me. I'm going to fall out. And let me know if you don't want me to use that example. For the other example that I use, like, you ever try to feed an infant who doesn't want to eat something?
I'm sorry, I've been thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, because and that is where this shows up the most. And if it's the infant, like the smallest little kid that you can find, the smallest you can find them, you still can't make them do what you want them to do. What makes you think you can do that with the 4-year-old or an adult? And then when you really start to think about those things, you really start to say, you're right, I can't do this. But what I can change me. And the changing you start with, you know what? I'm not going to make you stand on the steps. I'm going to give you a job, keep you occupied. And that's where, because you can change you can't change him. But you want to help him be successful, because you can't be falling out. Every day we have to walk outside, because that takes time, and my time can be better spent. So now I'm changing me, so I'm giving you a job so that, boom, we can move forward without all the falling out. So that part is whenever you're having a problem, it definitely helps to take a step back and say, what can I do? How can I change my behavior? Because that can help change the outcome of the situation. We are going to finish free will and take a 5-minute break. So power of self-control is free will. When you believe in others' free will, you offer them choices. You don't just say do it. And the essential life value is because when I'm saying I believe you can make your own decision, I'm empowering you. I'm saying you know what's best for you. Make the choice. And that's when you start to build confidence in kids. And then impulse control is like, you know what? I want to be helpful. So I could throw the block at your head, but I'm going to choose not to do that because I want to be helpful. You start to put a pause like between, so I've seen it happen sometimes in classroom, especially in kids that you've been working with, is somebody snatched a toy and the immediate impulse is to whop, and you see the hand go up, but the action doesn't follow through because you've been talking to them for a while. And I mean, you see it. That's what you do when you offer them choices. You put a pause in between the action and you pause before so the thought happens and then the action. But you put a pause in between the two so that they're more inclined to not want to do it because you've taught them, like, you know what, I could hit you, but Miss Annie said when somebody take my toy, I could just ask them for it. So that's what you do when you teach them the skill. You put that pause. It's like, I want to hit you, but she said I could ask you. Give me back my toy. And that's what you do. That's why when you give them choices, you really help put that pause in between. I want to whack you, but I have a better way of doing it where it's more beneficial for me because I know what's going to happen if I whack you. So I'm going, hey, give me back the toy. And then your picture rule cards help because kids do so much better with visuals. Like that's why I say take a picture. If you want to center a certain way, take a picture of the center that way and have it prepared in that center because they can easily look at it and that builds independence too because then you can just go do it yourself. You don't need me to tell you, no, well, the blocks go over here, the cars go over here, the animals go over here. Like you can just look at the picture because I've told you, hey, look at the picture over there. Put it'll help you put the stuff where they belong. Or if you have like a sequence card, we're like, well, this happens first, this happens second. Those sequence cards help too. And having them available for them to play with throughout the day, you're reinforcing those behaviors even when they're not happening because they're seeing, I was like, oh yeah, we did that at the table today. We sequenced this. I know how to do this. So making sure that you're incorporating some of those in your play because they learn best through play. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back. And, turn this on. All right, so we wrapped up choices, visuals for children, and now we're talking about empathy. Handling the fussing and fits. And we talked a little bit about it. If I'm crying because I want to come outside and everything you've done doesn't work, at that point you just, you know what, it is hard. Go ahead, you can stay right here and I'll help you calm down. The moment is as it is. So that's the acceptance that we talked about. For me, whining was a trigger for me. But once I accepted that whining was something that children did, it got easier for me to handle the whining. It's like, oh, Miss Annie, she took my toy. I was like, oh, did you like it? No, okay, so then you go over there and you say, give it back. But until I accepted that whining was a trigger for me, and whining was something that children did, use your voice. I used to think that you realize now when you're thinking back on the things that you used to do in your classroom, or I used to do in my classroom. It's like I used to tell them use their voice when they whine. What do they use to talk, Annie? Like they're using their voice already. No wonder there was no new skill being taught at that point. So yes, they're gonna keep whining. But once you keep giving them the words, and the whining also is part of like self-confidence. Kids who feel they're confident in them, they don't whine. So that's, if you look at it that way too, that's where there's a skill that needs to be taught. We already said the power was acceptance. The essential life value is compassion because for kids, their problem may not be as big as our problems, but we're compassionate enough to empathize and say, you know what? I know this is hard, but I can help you through it. And then we have the classroom structure is the We Care Center. And the We Care Center has the hard things that we go through, that pets dying, sometimes the We Care Center merges with the Celebration Center, because you tend to, we care about your brother graduating, we care about your new baby at home, we care about losing your mom. So the We Care Center tends to be more of the harder things that happen with the family. And that's, We Care Center is a really good place to start incorporating. Like, you have to talk to your families to know what's happening with the babies at home. And when we know what's happening at home, your We Care Center tends to have more stuff in it. It could just be, we care that you had a hard time transitioning from the bedroom, from like regular time to bedtime last night. So
Is this We Care Center the same as the safe space in the classroom?
two separate things. The We Care Center is like more like a board.
Oh, okay.
And you put, you can put a picture of mom if mom was in the hospital. It's like, we care about Glennielle's mom. So we're gonna put a picture of mom, and then at some point today, we're all gonna wish her mom well. But because Glennielle's in the classroom, that makes her feel great. Because, ooh, they're thinking about my mom, and now I'm thinking about all the good feelings that my mom's getting. So it puts me in a state where I feel love and I can learn. Because when all these things are happening to our babies, they're stressed. And all these things that we do with them is to deactivate their stress response so that they can optimally learn the things that we're teaching. So the We Care Center is more for some of the harder things. And then the Celebration Center is where you have your, oh, you're gonna graduate, even though you're gonna leave us, we're gonna remember you, but we're gonna celebrate the fact that you've gone through the whole program and now you're ready to move on to the next chapter. We're gonna celebrate that your aunt got married, but some of those require that family connection so that we know we can connect what's happening in their life with what's happening in the classroom to start to make the connections for the babies. The We Care Center, the reason why that's the structure too, when you're empathizing with Glennielle when we like wish her mom well because her mom was in the hospital. That's our way that we start to teach empathy to babies. Because kids, human beings, are egocentric. As we become adults, we learn to like not think about ourselves all the time. But kids don't have that. They're taught that. Because when they grow up, I can only think about my survival. And the way that my mom and dad and my teachers treat each other teaches me how to treat the people in my life. So that's why we have the We Care Center is one other tool that we use to teach them to empathize with the people around them. Okay, this is my like favorite state. So one thing when I first started with conscious discipline, I used to think like, okay, I'm either in survival or I'm in emotional or I'm in executive. That's not how it happens. Once you've learned an executive skill, it's all happening at the same time. Because when I'm angry, I can feel my survival state going like, you're mad. It's going. But because I'm in my executive state most time, I can tell my survival state, calm down, and that's the breathing. Like, breathing has been my saving grace. So you take that deep breath and you let it out to calm the survival state. You like survival state? Calm down. That's your executive state. We've got this. You don't have to act a fool. We have the skills that we need to be successful in the situation. But they're all, and then I want to say, I always like to point out that they're all very important because your brain's job is to keep you safe. So each state is very important because it's sending you a message and it's saying, hey, pay attention to me. So when you're triggered, your survival state comes on to say, hey, pay attention to me. Something in your CD-ROM is triggered. Something's happening. Pay attention to it, because if you don't pay attention to it, it's either gonna take you over or it's gonna keep happening over and over again because you're not gonna deal with it. So I always say they're like little people. There was an episode of SpongeBob I was watching, and SpongeBob, like they went in his brain and they were like a whole bunch of little SpongeBob in his head. 3 of them actually, which is crazy how when you start to do these things, you start to see them everywhere. And they just kept talking to each other. And one of them was like saying, and you can tell one of them was like, no, do this, do that. And they were all trying to tell each other what to do. But you can tell which one, like the executive had like a suit on. He's like, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. So it's sort of the same thing. They're not happening by themselves. And I mean, it's hard sometimes when you get the information, it's like, okay, well, I'm in survival. So how come I don't see adults fighting all the time? They get triggered and they get mad all the time. It's because all of us have an activated executive state, because we've all grown up. Adults teach us skills as we grow up. So because they teach us these skills, we do have an executive state that's always activated. We do have an emotional state that's always activated, or a survival state that's always activated, because we do things to keep ourselves safe. What ends up happening is that sometimes the environment we're in can affect one more than the other. And your survival, because it's the more mature, wants to take over. So it's like whoever's in the front is the one conducting you. You want your executive guy to always be the one in the front. But sometimes your survival guy gets in the front when you're mad. So when your survival guy is in the front, all it wants to do is fight, flight, or run. Like that's pretty much, or surrender, my bad. So fight, flight, or surrender when it's in control. Inside Out is another really good example. Whoever's at the wheel is the one that's going to be controlling. But with Inside Out, it's not your emotion, it's like your executive, survival, or emotional. And then with Inside Out, because adults, like the second language is activated, for us adults, our emotional state is always the leading guy because of our CD-ROM. We are emotional beings, and until you learn to self-regulate, your emotionals tend to regulate you. So it's like, can't believe Natalie did this. I'm never going to talk to her again. Whereas like, you know you're going to talk to her again. That's not even a logical sentence. But in your emotion, because emotions are not logical, there's nothing logical about emotions, you're going to say things that are illogical all the time because your emotional guy is always ruling. So when you learn these executive skills and you're willing to let your executive, because your emotional will be in control if you let it. When you're willing to let your executive guy take control, you have access to 12 skills. Attention, time management, organization, prioritization, working memory, impulse control, flexibility, empathy, metacognition, goal orientation, task initiation, and emotional regulation. Most of those are pretty self-explanatory, but I want to say metacognition is thinking about the way that you think. It's actually one of my strong skills. When you think about the way that you think, it helps you take on other perspectives. So it's like, okay, I know I usually think like this, but because I know Elandria really well, I can see where she's coming. Or it's, Annie, you think that way because you grew up in a third world country. That's why you think that way. But think about Natalie, who didn't grow up in a third world country. So it helps you to really process why I think the way that, why do I have these perceptions? So metacognition is that. And emotional regulation is being able to say, you know what, I know you're activated, but I want my executive guy to take control so we can come out of this still with a healthy relationship.
I'm glad you said about how we have all these conversations going on in our head, because some days I'm like, you're crazy, why are you you know, well, I'm not going to do this. Yeah, you're going to, no, I'm not going to do this. Well, I don't like how they did that today. So that was just.
That's the 3 guys. They're always in your head going back and forth. Because the survivor always wants you to do this. Emotional wants you to do this. But executive is the one that's like, guys, chill, okay? We have better skills than this. Chill. We don't just have access to these. Look at all these skills right here. We can access these as well. And I point that out because sometimes, I mean, in the beginning, I really was like, it's just survival, it's just emotional, and it's just executive. But it's like, but you only have one brain, so that doesn't even make sense. It's like I don't have 3 brains up there. I have 1 brain. So it's all happening. Oh, it's on the side. Yes. Should I stop now or? Okay. So, yeah. So, to wrap up, your states, you go in and out of all of them. But because we're emotional beings, our emotional, like most of the time we tend to let our emotional state be the leading guy. But we alternate between all of them. Because I can say, like, if we didn't, and every time you were triggered, guess what you would do? Fight, flight, or freeze. But you're not doing that when you're triggered. Because I know being in a work environment, it's like being around people in general. People think differently than you do. So knowing that you just alternate between the 3, but you are in control of who is leading the pack. So I think metacognition was the only one that I wanted to explain. And then working memory is not just regular memory. It's how you can take information from here, and make it work for you. So like at work, it's knowing that I got the DHS rules, I got the RTS responsibilities, and how I'm gonna bring it all to remember all of this stuff to be effective in my classroom. For me, it's if you want me to do something, send me an email, because not gonna remember it if you just tell me. So even though, and I always say, with your strongest skills, you're not going to be good at all of them, but you do have access to all of them if you choose to. So for me, working memory wasn't one of mine. So what I did, I'm finding that I can't really say that 100% anymore because I know it's not one of mine. There are things that I've done to help me, because I'm like, the remote is always in my little container that's on my coffee table. My remote control at home.
Is there a remote caddy?
Yes, thank you, a remote caddy. That was so helpful, thanks. I was like, what's the word? It's in my remote caddy on my coffee table. My car keys, when I'm out, are always I always put them in my coat pocket. I take off the coat pocket and I hang it up. Because, I mean, when I say I don't remember things, I lose things all the time. I do it all the time. My keys have a specific place at home. My purse has a specific place at home. But because I have all of those, I can't say that working memory is a weak skill anymore, because I've put things in place to make it work. So, and I gave that example because you might not be good at something, but the second you're willing to get good at it, you take steps to get good at it. The behaviors in the executive state: annoyed, irritated, and complaining. There are some more, but I stuck to these 3 because for a while I thought like I couldn't complain. Because I'm like, oh, that's just so emotional. So complaining has a solution focus. So when I'm complaining, I'm like, yo, I don't know what to do. Every time I send her the email, I specifically tell her, respond in 48 hours so that I can plan accordingly, but I'm not getting an email. Like, what do you think I should do? So when you're seeking a solution, when you're complaining to somebody, you are in your executive state. Because you're solution focused, not problem focused. Not, oh my gosh, every time I send her an email, she just won't send me an email. I don't know if she reads her email, like what's going on with her? You're talking about her and not you. And remember, we can't change her. You can't change you. You know what? I'm gonna try to give her a call, because clearly email is not a good way to communicate. So when you're thinking through this, that's why when you're solution focused, you're willing to try it a different way. When you're problem focused, there isn't anything you can do because you can't change the other person. In your mind, it's always the other person that's the problem, and I can't change the other person, so there's nothing that I can do. And that's why when you start to complain, it's more of it's an executive skill, because you're looking for a solution. When you're irritated or annoyed, some of the same thing too. I'm annoyed that we talk about this every month, and yet I go in the classroom and it's not being done. And then the annoyance is more like I'm getting something wrong somewhere. Because if I'm going in and talking about it every month and you're not getting it, I'm getting something wrong. So that annoys me. Like, what am I missing? If you're in your executive state. If you're in your emotional state, it's like, these teachers, I don't know what they're doing. I talk about this to them every month, and every month I go in and it's the same thing. Like, what's going on with them? Again, can't change the teachers, but I can change me. So it's like, what am I doing wrong? Because we've talked about this a few times now, and the message is not getting across. Maybe I need to do it a different way. And we love going in and repeating the same thing when you see that the teacher doesn't get it or the kid doesn't get it. It's like, whoa, we've talked about this 3 times. Why are you still not getting it? Probably because I didn't get it. Not probably, most likely because I didn't get it when you told it to me. Because if I did, I would start to show the behavior, the skill that you're teaching me. So we have to be willing to do it differently if we really want to be effective.
And the other day I was thinking, I feel like the difference there between the solutions focus and the problem focus in that type of situation is the difference between, for me, it's the difference between whining and complaining. Like, if I'm just whining at it, I'm just focused all around the problem. And we don't like to think that we're whining as adults, but we do, right? We whine about the traffic, and because there's literally nothing we can do about it. But when we're complaining, it's usually because we're trying to talk out the problem, right?
Yeah,
And that helps anybody else, but that helps my brain.
Yeah, and I can tell when I'm whining, because I mean, when the person I'm talking to says something that did disagree with me, I'm like, you know what I need for you right now is to just agree with me. Everything I say is right. Can you do that? Okay, good. Then I know, but what's funny is, I also feel like that's an executive skill, because I can assertively tell you what I need in this moment. I'm not gonna stay there, but right now, that's where I wanna be, and I'm aware of that. And I can communicate that. So you're still in your executive state, because when you're in, and I always see it as like in a hierarchy. If you're in survival, you only have access to survival skills. If you're in emotional, you have access to your survival and your emotional skills. If you're in executive, you have access to everything. So you can reach down and use whatever you need in that moment. So you have access to all of it. So because I'm saying, you know what, I just want to sit on my high horse and judge right now. That's what I want to do. And I'm not doing it to the person because I don't want to hurt the relationship, but you're my person. So I'm going to do it with you because I need to let it out. That's what I need. Assertively, I'm telling you, hey, I just want you to listen to me. Tell me I'm right. Tell me that person's horrible. I can't believe they ever did that to me, because that's what I need right now. And then by the end of the conversation, not eventually, by the end of the conversation, I'm like, but you're right. I mean, I didn't think about it this way. I guess I could reevaluate. And that's when, like, you start to pull out the executive skills that you want to use for you to be successful and for the other person to be successful. Does that make sense? So the power of love and the power of intention are the 2 powers for the executive state. So, and I love the power of intention, because intention goes deep. Intention is, in the beginning, I was doing conscious discipline. I was like, I have all these skills. I'm about to help these kids. I'm about to fix them. Children don't need fixing. People don't need fixing. But like, I got the skills and I was like, ooh, I need to get you to stop crying. My intention wasn't to teach you a skill to help with the overwhelming emotions. My intention was for you to stop crying so I wouldn't be annoyed. Does that make sense? So the intention behind your actions definitely will dictate how successful you are and how well you are at teaching the skill that you want to teach. Because my intention was to get you to stop crying. A lot of times you didn't stop crying because I couldn't witness your struggle. I didn't empathize with where you were. And I have to empathize because sometimes people just want to be heard, especially with kids. You ever ask somebody, yeah, oh my gosh, that was so hard, wasn't it? And it's like, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to go play now. Thank you. And that's all they need. That's all they needed. So empathizing is like that's why they say it's the heart of emotional intelligence, because people genuinely, your kids, your friends, they want to know that, hey, are you listening to me? Do you get that this is hard for me right now? Once you see that it's hard, it's like, okay, yeah, but you know what? I can do this. You're right. I can handle this. I've got this. But you have to hear me first before you tell me I can handle it. Because then I'm like, yeah, you're right. This is hard. Thank you for listening. I appreciate that.
Miss Annie, but sometimes it's hard to empathize with a child who just threw all the Legos across the table and knocked over a chair.
I agree. In the beginning, it is. And that's when I say, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. In the beginning, it is. And this is why I say fake it till you make it. Because I can tell you, like, even now, because of the way I grew up, talking back is still a trigger for me. But that's because of the way I grew up. Like, hey, girl, better watch it. You lose a tooth. And that's just the way that I grew up. So even now when a child talks back to me, I can still feel myself triggered, but I breathe. And I answer the question in a way, and then we go back and forth. We have a conversation. And I can sit through it. I remember it's like, Annie, it's not disrespectful to be curious. Just keep answering those questions. But I can tell, I am triggered because be quiet and do what I say. That's what I want to say. But I'm going to have that conversation with you. But the more I do that, now it's a lot easier for me. Like my whole body isn't disturbed anymore. It's more like, that's what you would have said, but you're not going to say that. You're going to say this. And then we can have and I'm more relaxed when I do the conversation. But it's about being willing to see you just don't have the skills to express this big emotion you're feeling right now. So throw in the chair, throw in the blocks, spitting on me. Whew. Breathe. You don't have the skills to express what's happening. And when I mean say fake it, I mean tell yourself, this child really does not have the skills to do it any better. The more you tell yourself that, the more your brain will start to believe it, and you'll start to notice the difference in the way you approach the kid. It's not easy by any means because of the way we're programmed, but the more you start telling yourself, you know what, you really just don't have the skills. You just don't have the skills. It also puts you in a space where you can say, ooh, I noticed you had some big feelings earlier. You were throwing the chair, you were throwing the blocks. Those must have been some really big feelings because none of that is safe. Next time you have these big feelings, you see these pillows in a safe place, you can kick them, you can punch them, you can put your face in it and scream, but you may not throw the chair because it's not safe. Again, all of that is after everything has happened, they're calm, they're back playing, because sometimes when I have that conversation while they're throwing, we do not throw chairs, and while they're throwing the chairs, they're not listening to you. Again, remember, blinders, headphones, I can't hear what you're saying, I can see you. And we have to wait until they're calm, they're back in the space, the happy space, to have those conversations. It also helps not to wait to have these conversations in the middle of the tantrum or when you know it's about to come. It also helps to figure out what those triggers are that are making them feel those big emotions that they can't regulate. And it's a lot. That's the power of attention. It's like I have to pay attention to know, ooh, I know Annie's about to cry if she doesn't get a blue chair at the table. Let's just put everybody's name on a chair. Let's make sure Annie gets a blue chair. That way that problem is solved. So it's some of those things. When you start to realize what your kids' triggers are, take them out of the classroom. Yes.
So I'm having a hard time because the trigger is changing a diaper. And it's not a choice. You have to do it. Mm-hmm. But it's like every time with this precious little boy, every time you go to put him on the changing table, like his entire body is like this. And then he tries to flip over the whole time. And he's terrified. And I know that I think it started around him having a really bad diaper rash. So he's afraid, getting wiped because it hurts. But it doesn't hurt anymore.
It triggers it.
Now he's fine.
But his brain still remembers the pain, and that's what it is. And the fake it, the faking it till you make it for you, for this situation sounds like you still think you have a rash, and that really hurt. And it really hurt. So talking to you is like, you know what, you don't have a rash anymore. Look, it doesn't hurt. And I understand if you think it still does, but guess what, it doesn't hurt. And I'll keep you safe as I change your diaper. That's what it might look like for you. And I say fake. That's why I say fake it till you make it, because you might have to tell yourself that a few times to get your brain and your heart to align. Because it's your heart that makes you like, because you have all these feelings.
I got smacked earlier changing.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. Oh,
So
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I understand you think I'm not a sick person. Well, I kept this particular child over the weekend,
yeah,
and my auntie actually brought it to my attention. I was like, she doesn't like me anymore. But she said maybe she think you're gonna take her from her mom again. So literally every time I come around, she's like back and back and.
MJ, my friend's baby, does the same thing to me. When he sees me, he's like, because I babysit for her all the time. When he sees me, he always like, I'm gonna go sit next to my mom. I'll play with you, but then I'm always scanning to make sure she's still there. So yeah, and kids are so good at making these connections. They're so good at making these connections, which is why we should take advantage of it and give them all these skills so they can be successful in situations. We, positive intents about creating teaching moments. So for the diaper change, it's giving him the words and the love to show them that, hey, it doesn't hurt anymore. That takes time because his brain's already associated the changing table with pain in my booty. So no, I'm not gonna want to change a diaper because there's pain in my booty. And yes, the pain is gone, but now my brain has made the connection that when I come to the changing table, my butt hurts. And I just don't want to be on a changing table. So it's a matter of reprogramming the brain, which takes time, which takes some faking on your part that it doesn't bother you. And when I say faking, I simply mean like give yourself time, accept that it's a trigger for you, but we're gonna work, but you can handle it. You're gonna work through it. And eventually, it's really beautiful when it happens and then you weren't paying attention and you realize the triggers, it's like, oh wow, okay, this just happened. Growth, hello, love it. And it's like over time, even now, like when I see family in the grocery store and the child's all over the place, it's crazy how there's not even judgment from the parents or for the kids anymore on my end. It's like, wow, mom needs skills, baby needs skills. Or the baby definitely didn't learn the skills that she needed to be successful. We're still working that with the talking back. I'm still working on it, even it's getting easier. But then again, no one's perfect. And then, yes. And then power of love, because when you genuinely approach a situation from a loving stance, you tend to offer a lot of like positivity to the person. So instead of saying, and Landria walked in, I said hello, she walked away. She's not rude. Something must be up. So because I believe Elendriel, I believe, part of having faith is like, I have faith that you wouldn't be, I'm going to use the word ugly, if something wasn't going, if stress wasn't involved. Because the stress is what causes some of the ugliness that comes out of people. And that's another reason why when I'm at the grocery store, I'm like, ooh, I feel a lot of stress. I wish you well. And I keep it moving. Yeah.
You say that to them?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, not at all. But so the wishing well is taking your positive energy and sort of sending it their way to help support whatever distress that they're in. Because, I mean, and it sounds like juju, but the Heart Math Institute, they're always studying the heart in general, and the heart gives off energy all the time. Like everybody's heart gives off energy. That's why you can walk into a room and know and feel the tension. It's that heart energy that is in a room. So if everybody's sort of mad at each other and you walk in and you're like, woo, okay, give me a knife so I can cut it. So that's some of the things that they're studying. I mean, I'm enjoying it because I'm like, oh wow, it sounds like magic, but it's not. And it's science, and I love science. I love finding out. It's like, oh wow, that's perfect. So your body also has like a natural field that surrounds you. Some people call it aura, but Heart Math Institute says like just a field that you give off, and that's why like when we get around each other, we automatically tend to affect one another. more thing for power of unity too. So with love, that's some of the things we talk about. If your self-talk is positive, you tend to exude positivity. So when I say I wish them well, it's more like I'm taking some of the positivity that I have in my heart, I shoot it their way, and I leave it to whatever power that be to take care of them, because I can't do it. And then the power of love teaches you diversity, because it teaches you to accept that Tara had different experiences than I did, so naturally she's not going to think the way that I think. But I'm not going to put negative intent behind the way that she wants to do things simply because we think differently. So positive and simply thinking like, you know what, she may want to do it this way, but she genuinely cares about children and her teacher. So let's talk some more so we can see if there's middle ground there. And I think sometimes we forget, we impose negative intent to what people do, and it makes it hard for us to keep talking. Because if I think you just don't love children, I don't want to talk to you. It's like, can you imagine, like, you don't like kids? There's nothing to be said to you. And then the basic skill is cooperation, because again, because I respect that her experiences make her think the way that she is, I'm more willing to sit down and say, okay, then let's talk some more. Let's see if there's middle ground. Cooperation. Boom. Your kids are more willing to cooperate with you too. If you're like, you know what? I'm not going to think you're mean when you hit that kid. I'm going to think that you didn't know how to get her attention. That's positive intent. Let me give you a better skill to support that. The next time you want to get her attention, just say her name. But if I'm thinking you're mean, there's nothing to teach you, because that's a personality trait and I can't change you. But if I'm thinking, oh, you need help, let me go over there and teach you how to get her attention. So that's cooperation. And then the classroom structure is the celebration center. So we're going to celebrate that. Oh my goodness, did you guys see Annie get in line today? Let us celebrate the fact that she got in line today. That was a really bad example. Really bad example. But some of those celebrations that, being able to celebrate the small things in the classroom. It's like, whoa, everybody came to school today. Let's celebrate. Or
Their shoes on today.
let's celebrate that. It's like, especially if it's something that you're teaching in a classroom, or if it's something you want to see in a classroom, when somebody does it, celebrate it, encourage it. And then the best way to celebrate it is to encourage it. It's like, oh my goodness, you put the blocks back where they belong. You kept everyone safe. Way to go. And make a whole show of it, because they're going to love it. They're going to want their own show. So then they're going to, oh, I'm going to clean up my center too. Go do that. So you can say, oh my goodness, you cleaned a dramatic play. You kept everybody safe. Way to go. Oh, what? I'm going to go clean the writing center now. And it's because they are attention seeking. They do want attention. But adults want attention too, guys. Like if I did an amazing training, you guys come up and be like, man, Annie, that really helped. I'm like, thank you. Thank you so much. Like, it feels good. And I think we've associated getting attention as being something that's negative, but everyone wants attention. And it maybe sometimes I change attention for love, because everyone wants love. And the attention that they're getting, if you pay attention to them when they're showing you negative behaviors, that's why you get more negative behaviors. And I think that's why getting attention has been associated with the negative behaviors. Because if that's what I have to do to get you to notice me, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the negative behavior, because the only time you pay attention to me is when I'm jumping off the table or throwing the chair. But when you start to notice me when I put the block away, I'm going to put the block away some more, because I see that you notice me when I put the block away some more. If you, and I'll use an infant for example, my friend uses sign with her little one. And it's so crazy how quickly babies pick up everything. So, I mean, his sign language is way better than mine. I can tell you. Like, he tells you to, wait, or I want. Like, he starts to, give it to, and it's because every time she's like, yay, you did it. Like, that encouragement. So now, more. Did you do more? Ah, you said So now he uses his signs. All done, yeah. All done. Now he's all done. That's what he says when he says the sign, but now he's able to say all done. I love it. Bye. So it's that encouragement, even with infant, works because it's like, oh, what? Did you just celebrate me? Thank you. What was it that I did again? That. I'm gonna do that more. So that when you celebrate these behaviors, you see them more because it feels good inside when you do that. And then for consequences, we can actually do a whole training on consequences alone because that's the one that we tend to have the hardest time with. Let me not say that. Sometimes we have a hard time with consequence because we don't realize that natural consequences are around us all the time. Like when I hit you over the head with a block, the natural consequence is that your head is going to hurt. It is not sitting over there and thinking about what I've done. That's a punishment. So there is a concrete difference between punishment and consequence. And a consequence teaches something. So when you hit me on the head with the block, I'm going to tell you, ooh, look at her face. What I'm teaching you is that hitting her over the block hurts. That's the consequence. So I'm teaching that there's a consequence to what you're doing because when you hit her over the block on the head with the block, it hurts and she starts to cry. And in our classroom, we're helpful. With infants, it's more about talking through it. And because exposure is everything. With your 1-year-olds too, it's a lot about talking through it. With the 1-year-olds, it's more about demonstrating. Like there's a lot of demonstration that's happening in your toddler classroom, the 1 and 2-year-olds. You want to show, ooh, gentle. And when I say gentle, you take their hands, you put it on yours. You want to show them what it looks like because they haven't connected the meaning of the words just yet. And that's your job to sort of do that for them in the 1 and 2-year-old classrooms. For your 3-year-old classroom is making sure that the way that you are with your co-teacher, they're watching you. And studies have shown that the way adults treat each other, your co-teacher, the way that you treat your co-teacher matters more than the way that you treat the kid. Because they're paying attention. And they said that let me not say with your co-teacher, but I know in the household, they said the way that mom and dad or mom and mom or dad and dad treat one another matters more to the because they're looking at the interaction. It matters more. It makes them feel more love that when their parents show love to each other than the relationship between the two of them because they're sponges and they're taking in everything. And that's partly because you can't show me love and I see how you treat my mom or my dad. That's confusing messages you're sending me. And it's making me doubt the love that you have for me because I see how you're treating other people that you say you love. So you can never lay a hand on me, always show me love, but the way that you treat people also is sending me a message. And I can't help but, if you did that to her and you love me, am I at risk? Yes. Yes, you are. And helping children learn from their mistakes. So I had a little one in my classroom and I realized what I did, and I'm like, you're not in trouble. In a second, I would say that. Man, I did. And it's whenever they made a mistake, and I would say, you're not in trouble, boom, waterworks. Because they've associated, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get in trouble. So being mindful, word choice matters. Because for some kids, because they've already been programmed to do things a certain way, once they hear trigger words, they're trigger words for them. And then mistakes are opportunity to learn. So you spilt the milk, I'm going to teach you how to clean it up. And next time I'm putting the milk in front of you, I'm going to remember your hand-eye coordination isn't always there. So we're going to slowly work on you grabbing the cup properly. I'm going to remember that you have a hard time cleaning the block center because you just throw everything on a shelf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture up to help support you cleaning the block center. So when they make a mistake, they're communicating to you, hey, I'm lacking a skill. Will you teach it to me? And that's why they say mistakes is an opportunity to learn. And the power of self-control in intention is intention is consequence, because if my intention is to punish you, then because you spilt the milk, then I'm going to make you sit down when we go outside for recess, because my intention was to punish you, not to teach you how not to spill the milk again. So the next day, we're sitting at the table and the same thing is going to happen again. And your basic social skill is problem solving. And this is why I like consequence. So consequence, intention, and it teaches responsibility. And so when I say, when you hit her on the head, it hits her on the head, I'm showing you that this is, you chose. You're accountable for hitting her on the head. And that was hurtful. So you start to think about your actions, because you can start to see that they affect other people. And with your class meetings in your 5-year-old, 3 to 5-year-old classroom, it's more of a, you know what? I've noticed we have a running problem, like in large group, and you have chart paper ready, because it's a literacy lesson too. I've noticed we're running in the classroom. Is running safe? No, that's probably what you're gonna get. So, okay, so since running is not safe, we're gonna write down some of the things we can do when we see our friends running or when we feel the urge to run. You take everybody is gonna have something to say, you write it all down. Then the step that it looks more like, okay, so somebody might have said, we should walk on the chairs instead. I was like, okay, ooh. So somebody said we should walk on I'm still gonna write it down because they said it, but somebody said we should walk on the chairs instead. Is walking on the chair safe? No. All right, then we're gonna cross that out because we're safe in our classroom. So then you cross out the outrageous ones. And then whatever's left over, you're like, all right, so we've decided as a group, we're going to A, B, C. You put that paper up because that's your accountability piece. So what happens if our friends run in a classroom? So that's the imposed consequence. And the imposed consequence is always something that you do with the group. Because when we have all agreed that we're going to hold each other accountable for this, it's easier for you to hold me accountable to this. This works with adults too. Because if I have said, you know what, Elandriel, I said I'm going to do this. If I don't do this, you're welcome to do that. I can take it a lot better because I've told you, yes, you can do this. So when we're imposing consequences, especially with the older ones, including them in the process definitely helps. All your executive skills, if you put your thumb right on top of your ears and then you close your index finger, all the part in the front is your frontal lobe cortex. That's not fully developed until you're 25, which is why you can't rent a car without extra cash until you're 25 years old. That was for a reason. So that's where your executive skills live. And it's not fully developed until you're 25. And that's why a lot of times we're having to be the executive state for our babies, because that's how we impart those skills that we're teaching. We're starting to build and develop their executive state. That's why we're giving them the skill. Instead of like smacking me in the face, I'm going to ask for it instead. That's when I start to learn these executive skills. Even though it's not fully developed until 25, if no one has taught me a skill, even at 25, I won't have that skill because I can't learn. I don't know until someone has taught me this skill. And I think that's sometimes like, you're an adult, you should know this. I'm like, That's why you empathize with adults too. I'm like, you know what? Perhaps no one taught you that you can't talk to people that way. I'm going to talk to them like, hey, when you're speaking to me, please use a calm tone and a lowered voice because I'm right in front of you. You don't have to scream. I can hear you. And you do it again, and I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to tell you. You do it again, and I go back again. Because the brain doesn't change overnight. We have to be willing to continually go in and out, in and out. Change. We have to be willing to put in the work to reprogram the person because, again, it's a skill, and they can't learn it overnight. So we've talked about all three. And our final commitment will be to committing to finding the positive in the things that you perceive negative. Because you have to start somewhere. You're gonna have negative perceptions, and being willing to just see, is there a positive way that I could look at this situation? And then when you find yourself focusing on a negative, you use the appropriate skill to help you shift to the positive. And if you're willing, we're gonna say, I'm willing. Thank you guys for your time. Hope this was helpful.